We have had a long cycle so far of primary elections. This week brings primaries in several more states. We'll be doing live election coverage for that tomorrow on the Young Turks. And usually what happens after these primaries is that you have a long campaign, obviously. You go to the general election. That's when you really find out who's gonna have the spot. Sometimes it's a little bit more clear cut than that. And we have a slight example of that with our next guest, Rashida Tlaib, who's running in Michigan's 13th district, joins the show now. Well, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you here. And so I want to talk, first of all, about it appears that your road to actually winning in November is a little bit clearer than in other cases. And so I'm curious, in that sort of situation, how does that shape how you spend your time campaigning? What sorts of issues you focus on, things like that?
Yeah, so I can tell you I'm obviously helping a lot of my fellow sisters that are out there trying to pick up some seats, progressive women like Gretchen Driscoll, Hallie Stevens, and others that are in Michigan running against strong Republican challengers. But mostly I am also doing what we call community conversations around where do I put my neighborhood service centers? What are some of the issues folks want me to focus on immediately? So I'm continuing to stay rooted and continue to be able to stay connected with my seniors and everybody else that had wanted to play a huge role in how I hit the ground running. And so we're continuing. I'm here actually at the office talking about what senior events that we want to have and trying to reach out to people. Because one of the typical things that happens is, after you win, you disappear. I don't want to be one of those typical politicians that do that.
And that is certainly good to hear. You always hear about, in the past, it was this case where congressmen and women spent a lot of their time with their district. It seems like that's not as big of a thing, so that's certainly good to hear. In terms of your advocacy for other candidates, it took a while for the media to really get the message for the sorts of people that were winning, especially on the Democratic side, and especially Democratic female candidates, in terms of strong progressives like yourself. But now that the media is paying more attention, is that helping in your advocacy for other candidates, that when you go and you speak, that the media is more likely to follow?
I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that because I got to tell you, I liked kind of being under the radar. I like the fact that I didn't have this kind of, microscope of every single thing I say is dissected, or people trying to figure out how is this possible, especially in the Midwest, for somebody of Muslim faith, not only myself, but also Ilhan Omar getting elected in Minnesota. I mean, these are the things that people start talking about. Why did this happen? Instead of celebrating it, instead of embracing it. I mean, I think we need to be still and just know how incredible that this moment is. The fact that this happened at a time right now in our country that two American Muslim women are now going to be members of the United States Congress. It speaks volumes to just what it means to many of us that have been working really hard on the ground. I mean, I expected only about 60,000 people to come out to vote. 89,000 people came out to vote in the 13th congressional district. Wow. That says that people are awakened, they're engaged, and I'm excited about that. I hope that my other candidates out there that are progressive, that are running for office, not to get detoured into this media attention all of a sudden, to stay focused, that the direct door-to-door, staying engaged, staying real is what's important and what should be center to their campaign right now.
I totally understand that, but because I'm in the media, I am going to attempt to distract them. That's sort of my thing. So as you acknowledge there, it turns out in terms of the time zones, are likely to be the first ever Muslim female to enter Congress, although you might not be the only one by the end of that night. But outside of that, what's been fascinating in this cycle is that far more women are running for office, far more women are winning their primaries, especially on the Democratic side. And I've seen analyses showing that across many candidates, actually in this cycle, being a woman has actually been a benefit. You're winning at higher rates than males are. We're not seeing that so much on the Republican side. If the general election, if they go the way that we think that they might, what do you think this sort of reshaping in terms of gender and representation in other areas for Congress, how might that impact different issue areas?
Well, I think that women, the diverse women that are coming, not only myself, Jahana Hayes, Alexandria, Ilhan, myself, I mean, we have a different unique lens. I mean, half of our colleagues in Congress right now are millionaires. They're in an income bracket that is so out of touch with so many struggles and challenges for working families. Many of them don't understand what it means to send your child to a class size of 35 or more. Many of them don't understand what it means to work multiple jobs. And so with us, I mean, we're going to probably be a shock to the culture that is there in Congress, because we do come from a unique lens as not only as women, but women of color, women that have come from various diverse backgrounds. Many of us having different kinds of positions out in the community, working class positions and jobs. I think it is going to be just a beautiful rainbow of unique kind of approach to public service that I think a lot of us have been lacking or feeling like we didn't have a voice in Congress right now in regards to that. I mean, we finally feel like there at least is a handful of women that are now going to Congress that are not part of the establishment, not part of the same old kind of recycled names, but uniquely different, real. We talk differently from many people that are running for office. We also see things in a very different light than most members of Congress right now. And I hope people embrace that. I hope my colleagues in Congress embrace that and know that it has been lacking. And that's why so many of us don't feel like we have a voice right now in Congress.
And hopefully will be the first of future waves to come in future elections. I had one more question. I want to ask you about a particular issue area, because I was reading an interesting breakdown of how you and Alexandria and a few of the other candidates in the cycle have been talking more about issues of environmental justice and the intersection of issues with the environment and class and race. And I was reading in that research that you've actually battled the Koch brothers over petroleum coke, this like toxic byproduct of these industrial processes that are often dumped in areas where millionaires don't tend to live. And I wanted to ask you both about that battle, and also when you enter Congress, what do you see yourself doing in these areas of environmental justice?
I mean, you have to know in my district, probably over 300 air permits alone are in the particular, I think, 3 zip codes. I have from the waterfront and the international crossing, I have the only petroleum refinery in the state in my district. 1 of 5 children have asthma. I can tell you my dad, who had 2 forms of cancer, died at the age of 67. Wow. All of us, especially in the Wayne County area in Michigan, have seen an overwhelming kind of a betrayal by public officials and turning their heads away in regards to corporate polluters not following current law. And so for many of us, I think, especially for me, this is not about new laws or new policies. This is about enforcing current law and holding them accountable and not treating them as if they're above the law. When it came to the petroleum coke that was dumped on the riverfront, it was illegally dumped. They didn't apply for a permit. They didn't tell anybody they were doing it. Marathon pretended they didn't know anything about it. But also, I mean, it took us some digging around, and we finally found out it was the Koch brothers that had purchased about 20 years worth of, byproduct of the tar sands that were being, funneled in or piped in from Canada. And I was really very much frustrated because the state, and this is before Flint, was saying that it wasn't toxic.
Yeah.
When I got it independently tested and it showed that it was harmful to public health and the environment, they changed their mind and said, okay, it's toxic if it's not been contained. But you're going to get someone like me and others that will take an approach that goes beyond just voting the right way, beyond just the press conferences and the statements of actually, jumping over piles and testing it ourselves, taking the matter into our own hands. Because I think relying on government that has now been tainted by corporate greed is not going to be the answer to stop the corporate polluters and hurting our working families.
I couldn't agree more. Well, thank you, Rashida Tlaib, candidate in the 13th district in Michigan. Hopefully you'll rejoin the show at some point when you are Congresswoman Tlaib.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching this video from The Damage Report. Please don't forget to like the video and also to subscribe to the channel so that you get notified as soon as new videos become available. To hear even more about both this topic and other issues not being covered nearly enough by the mainstream media, you're gonna wanna tune in every morning to our full hour-long show. That's at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, available on the TYT Network channel on YouTube TV.